Solving by square roots, Pythagorean theorem. The Pythagorean theorem can help us solve for the missing side of a right triangle. It is very helpful in geometry. Remember, C is always the longest side and is always across from the right angle. Notice in this triangle, here is the right angle. It points to, like an arrow, the side across from it that is the longest side and is labeled C in the diagram. The Pythagorean theorem is C squared, hypotenuse squared, equals A squared plus B squared, where A and B are the other two legs. Let's look at the first example. Here's the right angle pointing like an arrow to the opposite side where the X is. So the X is the C, the other two sides are the legs A and B. It really doesn't matter which is which since we're adding them. The important one is C, it does matter, across from the right angle and the longest side. So the equation we set up for C squared will be X squared equals 5 squared plus 12 squared. Now we simplify the right side of the equation. 5 squared makes 25, 12 squared makes 144. Now we can add those together on the right side. X squared equals 169 since 25 plus 144 equals 169. Now we have to make the squared go away, so here's where we apply solving by square roots. We take the square root of both sides. Since the square root will cancel out the squared, they are inverse processes. Now normally we would say plus or minus the square root of 169, but since x represents the side of a right triangle and the side of a right triangle cannot be a negative number, just x equals positive 13. We will not say plus or minus when we're solving with the Pythagorean theorem because the side of a right triangle can only be positive. Let's look at the next example. Here's the right angle. It's our arrow that points to the opposite side. Therefore, 8 is C. The other two legs will be the A and the B. So we start by writing our equation starting with the C. 8 squared, because 8 is C, equals 4 squared plus x squared. Now we simplify. 8 squared is 64, so 64 equals 4 squared, which is 16, plus x squared. Now we can get the x squared by itself by subtracting 16 from both sides of the equals, so the 16 cancels out and leaves x squared by itself. So x squared equals 48, because 64 minus 16 is 48. Now we make the squared go away by taking the square root of both sides, because the square root cancels out the squared. Again, we would normally say plus or minus, but since x refers to the side of a triangle, plus or minus doesn't make sense, just the positive one. Since 48 is not a perfect square, we'll break it up into the square root of 16 times the square root of 3. The square root of 16 is 4. The square root of 3 stays square root of 3. And 4 square roots of 3 is our answer. X equals 4 square roots of 3.